right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started, and thank you all for coming out. I think it's good. And actually, we were talking about this beforehand. We were hoping for we wanted some people here, but we didn't want the whole place full because we want this to be sort of an intimate setting where you can ask questions, because I think you're going to get some pretty cool information out of this session. So I want to introduce our guest and our interviewer. And before I do that, just some real quick housekeeping items. Has everybody been to an earlier session? I've seen most of you. Is it you hadn't been, or you came? You came. Okay. So I think everybody knows the deal. But fill out the card there so I know who came to this, and so you can be in the drawing for our book. So today, this session, we're giving away this one. That's called Effective Immediately, and so we'll. I'll do the drawing for that and send out the winners first thing in the morning. But just if you don't care, since there's not a ton of you, I'm not going to set the box back there on the table. Just leave your sheet when just in your seat when you leave. So with that, let me go ahead and address our panelists, and just to remind you kind of the topic tonight, what we're going to be talking about is careers in unexpected or overlooked industries. That's the title of the session. And the reason I wanted to do this is because a lot of students have the chance to work at a place like Speedway, for instance. They came to our career fair last year. Have this wonderful internship program, management and training program. But a lot of times people don't go there because they think, well, it's Speedway. I don't want to just work at a convenience store. Jeni, as you're going to find out, she works for a franchise company that owns a lot of Papa Johns restaurants and Qdoba locations. Again, it's a restaurant business. A lot of people don't think about it. But Jeni's made a very nice career out of it, and I think you're going to enjoy her story and learning how all that worked. And I think you're going to learn a lot and hopefully pick up some good tips. So let me, first I'll introduce Mr. Qdoba Mukherjee. He's our interviewer. And Mr. Mukherjee is also an adjunct instructor here. So if anybody here is thinking about doing the MBA program at some point in the future, you might have him for class. So be nice to him. Mr. Qdoba Mukherjee is currently a management consultant and a corporate advisor. His clients are primarily global companies participating in chemical and related industries as well as technology. Prior to this, he was the president and CEO of Progenesis Technologies, a company involved with the development of new and innovative green polymer technology using genetic engineering. And Progenesis is located in Huntington. Mr. Mukherjee previously served as president and CEO of the National Institute for Chemical Studies. They're known nationally for helping communities manage the environmental health and safety risks associated with manufacturing, transportation, storage and handling, and disposal of chemicals around the nation. Under Mukherjee's leadership, NICS was one of the few recipients of the EPA's CARE grant in recent years. He also served on the DEP's Technical Advisory Committee. Mukherjee has a master's degree in business administration and chemical engineering. He's also an adjunct professor, which I just told you about. He enjoys bridge, golf, hiking, tennis, and traveling. And he lives right here. He's almost a neighbor to us, lives in the South Hills area of Charleston. And our guest tonight is Jeni Conrad. Jeni Conrad grew up in Utah, but she has spent most of her adult life in West Virginia. She started working in the restaurant business at 15. Now, she's not that old, but she's been working for a few years, right? What did we figure out, 17 years? Yeah. So you can do the math there. So. She started working in the restaurant business at 15 while going through high school and college, working at various places. In 2010, she graduated from Glenville State College, summa cum laude, with a bachelor's in English, and she moved to Charleston and started working at Qdoba in 2011. While working for Qdoba, she started graduate school at Marshall University, and a semester into grad school, she was promoted to general manager and simultaneously running a restaurant and attending school. In 2016, she graduated with an MS in sociology with a focus on the workplace. She passed her thesis defense with distinction and is currently working as the training director over the 5 Qdobas the franchise owns, and plans to expand to helping the 32 Papa Johns owned by the franchise. So That is not a small franchisee. That's a pretty big one, guys. So with that, I will turn it over to Deepak.
Thank you. This is mine. That's yours. Okay, we'll get started, but before we start, I wanted to thank Travis. As students, you should know he's one of the best career development person that I have ever met. So that's credit to you guys to have him as a career development person. Jeni and I got to know each other primarily for this session. However, I think I know a lot more about Jeni now than I knew just about a week ago. Her background is very interesting, and as a general rule, I normally let her talk the first few minutes. Whatever she wants to share that might be useful to you as a student group. And then we'll get started with the Q&A session. And after I'm done, I'll open it to the floor, and we'll have questions from you, which should be of interest. So I'll let you sit.
Is this, yep, it's working. Hi, I'm Jeni. Really grateful you all came out today. It's very nice of you taking time out of your busy schedule. I would just like to start with a little bit of history on me. I did go to college thinking I was going to get out of the restaurant business. So my dad ran restaurants my whole life, and he always was never home. We had to celebrate birthdays by going to the restaurant and sitting in the booth, and he'd come out for 2 seconds, and we'd sing a song to him, and he'd run back into the kitchen where he had to keep working. So I rarely saw my dad, and that really, bothered me growing up because I kind of liked him and stuff. And I wanted to do something different for my family. I wanted to be there for them, and so I also decided that going to college would be good because obviously going to college is good. But I also wanted to do something other than restaurant for several reasons. So I started doing my undergrad with a teaching certification. So I was going to be an English teacher. I love writing, and I thought I could teach like AP English for seniors and have a lot of fun, because I had fun with that when I was in high school. And then I started the actual student teaching part, and it was horrible, like really awful. The students, I had a 9th grade class, and I won't tell you where they are, but they're close to this. They were in this area, and I really struggled because there was at least 2 girls pregnant and 1 kid who was always late to class because he was out dealing drugs in the hall, and then there was another kid who, and this one was the one that bothered me the most, is he literally would just sit there and do nothing. Like the whole class, every time. And we couldn't get him to participate in any way. So I decided that that was really frustrating for me. I like control a little bit more than what teachers are allowed to have. As a teacher, what's the worst you can do is like get the parent involved, but the parents don't care. Is that kid gonna care? No. Now obviously the kid was reacting to the fact that his parents didn't care in the first place because he had no desire to try or do anything. And so I decided I could not be a teacher. Plus, I found out how early teachers had to wake up. It's really early, like 5. That's too early for me. So I was like, I cannot be a teacher. So I dropped my certification in teaching and picked up a minor in sociology, which, by the way, if any of y'all are trying to be teachers, I'm not knocking it. It's a great profession. I'm just not good enough to do it. So as I was going through my schooling, I thought, well, I'll just get an English degree, and I made lots of jokes. I was like, what can you do with an English degree besides teach? It's like, well, nothing. So anyway, I'll have a degree. But my professors kept trying to tell me, well, you can do lots of stuff with it, and they're trying to get me to go to law school and kind of stuff. But what ended up happening is I kept working in the restaurant business, and I kept being so successful. I kept getting promoted and making money, and by the time I was really considering what to do with my life, I was making more money in the restaurant business than I would have with any career using my bachelor's degree. So it was hard to It would be hard to leave the restaurant business doing that. But I thought, I'm still going to try and do something else just because I think I can. So I went and got my master's degree in sociology. I was going to be a professor because professors can sleep in a little bit later than public school teachers. Plus, if your students don't do their work, it's fine. It's not like you're stuck with them, you know, they drop out or whatever. So it was a lot more conducive to the ideas I wanted to have as a teacher. So then I was going through my grad school, and I got promoted to general manager. And suddenly I was making more money than I would be if I were to be a professor. So I was like, why would I even waste my time being a professor? But I still have a heart for the academics and teaching, and I enjoy that. So I finished my degree and was still kind of holding out. I still might go get my doctorate, I'm not sure, but right now I'm experiencing some good success at being in the restaurant business. So after I got my master's degree, then I decided to step down and spend some more time with my family, because being a general manager is really hard on your family. And I got pregnant. I was like, I want to be there for my kid, where my husband wasn't. Or my dad wasn't. I want to be there. So I stepped down and started doing like the paperwork in the office, like ordering shoes and small wares and having classes. And so it was just a lot less stress than being a general manager. Well, then my boss quit, who was the training director. So then I guess I got defaulted into this position, which I secretly wanted this whole entire time. So it worked out really well, and I'm really happy that I have this position. It's amazing. But what I did want to talk about a little bit is I have a list of good things about working in the restaurant business, and then I do have a list of some negatives because, you know, I want to be fair about it. So I wanted to go over 6 good qualities about the restaurant business. The first one is we have a lot of fun. Raise your hand if you worked in the restaurants before. You have? Okay. So you know that there's a little bit of a culture there. People are laughing. It's a stress relief. They tease each other. We pull pranks on each other. We flip rubber bands at each other, and we are laughing about all kinds of stuff all day long. It's really fun. Plus, you get like an adrenaline rush when you have a rush of people come in, and you're part of a team, right? You have your spot, you know your job, and you just know how to do it. And you know what everyone else is going to do, and you work together in sync like a team. I've never been in a good sports team or anything, but I imagine it's something like that where you feel like just you know what everyone's doing and you can rely on each other. And that's a great quality of the restaurant business without having to be good at sports, because I am horrible at that. So I was able to feel that in the restaurant business, feel that adrenaline rush. I still love it when people come in and we have a line to the door and I'm like, let's bust this out, and I get excited and we push people through as a great team, and that's really fun. So it can be super addicting because of that. I don't think that there are a lot of jobs where you feel that adrenaline rush almost every day. You know, maybe sit down to do some spreadsheets. You're like, yeah. No, that probably doesn't happen. So I don't know. And then the second reason is time goes by super fast at work. So, well, sometimes. Mostly, if you're in a busy restaurant, it goes by super fast. Like, I have had countless shifts at work where I come home and sit on the couch and blink and think, did I even go to work today? Like, it literally went that fast. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I went to work. So I must have. So time goes by really fast. And most people, when you're at work, don't want to be sitting there for hours watching your clock tick. And that can happen if you work in a job that you're not enjoying. And that's one thing about the restaurant business is you're too busy. You don't have time to get bored. And if you do, then you should start cleaning. You have time to lean, you have time to clean. Yeah, I'm that girl at work. Anyway, number 3 is free food. I mean, do I need to say anything else about that? Free food. And that's how I make most of my friends, you know? Like, hey, you want to be my friend? I can give you free food. It works out pretty well. Right? I gave Travis free food before. That's right. Yes. So that's always a plus. Number 4 was that you can make more money in the restaurant business without a degree. So even if I didn't have a master's degree, I would still literally be in the same position that I am now, making the same amount of money. So there's a qualification, which I still totally endorse getting a degree and going to school and everything, because it's going to do nothing but help you. But just saying, if that's not possible, then the restaurant business is definitely going to help you pay your bills. Number 5, trying to remember, I had it all a list in my head. Sorry, flexible schedule. So obviously, I went to school while I worked the whole time. And they were able to work with my schedule, and I could work evenings if I needed to, or mornings or whatever. So it's a great job for people that have school or family, daycare issues, or people you have to take care of in your family, or hobbies even. There's a girl I know who does pottery, like she makes pottery, and does that during the day and then works for Papa Johns in the evening. So it just depends on what your lifestyle is. You can still make a full bunch of money with a very flexible schedule. And flexible schedules now are huge in the industries right now. 6 is, it's a great industry to work. We were talking about this last week, so we all know that retail and malls and stuff, they're starting to dwindle and maybe even close down a little bit, right? You've probably all heard about the issue with they're trying to sell the mall and then they couldn't or whatever. Well, the thing about restaurant business is there's always going to be people hungry, and there's always going to be restaurants around. So no matter where you move to, if you decided, I don't want to be in West Virginia or wherever the rest of my life, I can go move to, I don't know, Iowa. There's restaurants there. You can get a restaurant job anywhere you move. So, and there's always going to be people hiring and people eating. So it's a pretty solid industry as far as that goes. And then I'm addicted to it. It's in my blood. I think my dad, he warned me when I was 15. He said, don't go get addicted to the restaurant business. And so like most good 15-year-olds, I totally listened to him and totally got addicted to the restaurant business. But, it is what it is. It's just a fun place to be. Now, there are bad things about it. And I did want to talk about it, so I'm not totally blinded. I understand. First would be the stigma, right? So you're at a social function, say your 10th high school reunion or whatever, and they're like, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, well, I work at Papa John's. They're going to be like, oh, man, you suck. Well, you just wasted your life. They have no idea how much money you make. You could be making over 60 grand a year, and they have no idea. So that's a problem. And I don't know that we can change that necessarily, because that's just how society sees the restaurant business. I feel like once people get to know me personally and get past that, then it's not an issue anymore. I think when people realize that you can give them free food, it's not an issue anymore. So, but that is something that happens. Another thing is it's very physically demanding. You're on your feet a lot. You have to be able to move fast. People who are kind of slowish don't really last very long in the restaurant business, which is one reason why it's addicting, because it is hard. If you're good at something that's hard, it's really addicting. You're like, man, I'm awesome, and I want to keep doing this because it makes me feel good. And so that is a side effect of that. Another thing is it takes a lot of commitment sometimes. So in order to really get further in the restaurant business, you have to be willing to work weekends. You have to be willing to work nights. You have to be willing to come in on your day off because so-and-so called off and they need your help a lot. Then you have to go in and, I get a little God complex and I'm like, I'm here to save the day, but, that's probably not very nice of me. But that's how I feel when I go in and help people when they're struggling, and so that, that appeals to me in that way. But it is a bad thing, because most people that we know have birthday parties on the weekends, or all your family's doing stuff, and so that's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. But the further you get up, the more tenure you have, the better, higher you up in the restaurant business, the more you'll be able to pick your schedule a little bit. So I think that's what I have
That's what you have? Okay.
That's what I have.
Let me take you back a little bit. Travis had given the students a profile of yours, and you gave them some more additional information here. From all that, I concluded that you had at least 3 different roles. One is as the GM of a restaurant itself. One is in the family business. The role is very different. And the third one is in the corporate, which you have been in the director. Can you kind of describe to them so that they can get a better perspective on what actually is demanded out of those 3 positions?
Yes, I'll start with family first because that's where I started with my dad running a restaurant. So I was young during most of that time, but I did get into college while he was running a truck stop, which has a negative stigma, but there it is. He did own a truck stop. So I was a server there, and it was a little difficult because I was still so young, so I didn't have a lot of management experience, but I sort of had to be a manager just because my dad owned the store. So people would look at me. There was a lot higher microscope. I had to make sure I was doing things properly, and I also had to make sure there wasn't favoritism. When I was upset at a different person, I couldn't get them fired, you know, so I made sure that was a little bit of a sticky situation, but I think my dad was able to handle that well, even though I was too immature to really handle that very well. But it was definitely a lot of pressure because we were open 24 hours, and if someone didn't show up, so I worked 2 to 10 p.m. If my night person didn't show up, I'd have to work till 6 a.m. So 2 p.m. till 6 a.m. And then my dad, he was the cook, and I did front of house stuff, so I wasn't able to help him in the back very much. But there was one time he worked literally 3 days in a row, all day, all night, all day, all night, because someone called off and couldn't come in and was sick and stuff. So that was really hard because I would try to sacrifice my own self and time and school to help my dad because he was my family. You know, I had to help him. So that was a little bit difficult, and it made me vow I would never work in a 24-hour place ever again. It's just too hard. It's too hard. I need sleep, as you can tell about my comments about teaching. And the next thing I did was corporate. So I was at Olive Garden for about 8 years-ish. And I loved it. Olive Garden was fun. I was just a server, and then I became a certified trainer, and then I was doing to-goes. And it's definitely a corporate atmosphere, but since I was so low on the totem pole, I didn't really interact a lot with the corporate situation. We just basically had rules. You followed those rules, and that's what it is, you know. Corporates are able to offer better insurance and maybe higher pay, but you're just sort of a cog, you know, you're just in the clock in a way. You don't really feel like you're contributing to the organization as a whole, because you're just one little piece in that puzzle. And then franchise, I have been there with our franchise for 8 years, and I've had a lot more personal responsibility. I can see where my actions impact the whole company. As of now, every single GM that we have, I trained, and then except the one in Morgantown. But I helped train his assistant. So it was like my influence has shaped every single restaurant that we have because of their GMs are making their decisions and they're hiring and I'm training. And so that has been really a neat experience to see. And the franchise owner gives us a lot of autonomy. He lets us make choices be based because he hired us for a reason, right? He wants us to make choices as if that restaurant is our own personal business. So we're able to do a lot of freedom with marketing, with hiring, even with firing. In a corporate world, you have to have people sign off on stuff, and you have to put up with people for a little bit longer than you want to because of the corporate system. In the franchise, my boss knew that if I was going to fire somebody, that's what needed to be done, and I didn't have to put up with that for a long time. And so he had a lot of support. We had a lot of support with that. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's good. That kind of leads into my next question is, if you take the role of a hiring manager in a restaurant industry, and these folks applied, what are some of the personality traits or attributes that you're going to look for that's going to differentiate them from the rest of the crowd?
Okay, I love that question because I'm trying to hire people all the time. And I am huge on attitude. I don't care about your experience. I know that sounds horrible, and I know that that's all you've been taught is that you have to have a lot of experience before you'll get hired. I don't care about that. The only thing I'm looking at is how long you've been at a place. So if I see on an application that you've been there 3 or 5 months, I'm probably going to pass. I'm probably not even going to call you because that's not a very good record, right? But if you've been somewhere, I don't care where it is, you know, working for a garbage truck, whatever, for 2 years, I'm going to think that's great. You've been in an organization for a long time. I'm going to want to talk to you. And then when I actually meet the person for the interview, I judge the energy level. Am I able to have a good conversation with that person? If I can't, then I know my guests can't, and then the guests aren't going to be happy, and that makes me unhappy. So I try to hire people to have really great attitudes. They're friendly. If someone does not smile one time during an interview, I cannot hire them. It doesn't matter anything on their resume if they don't smile one time. In fact, I'm hiring a guy tomorrow. He is literally fresh out of Job Corps. He's 17. He has never, ever had a job. But I'm very excited because he's so cute. Like, he's just happy and he's friendly. And we talked in the interview about TV shows and manga and like all kinds of nerdy stuff that it was just really refreshing. And I liked him with the attitude and his way of kind of just how he is. So I know that's sort of how he is kind of vague, but the attitude, the energy, I'm sensitive to energy. If I feel someone is trying to drag the mood down with negative energy, then I don't want that in my store. I try to build a store with a ton of positive, happy people. And that's what I look for when I interview somebody.
Okay, thank you. One statistics that you mentioned before was about compensation in the restaurant industry. There's some conflicting reports that I found in BLS, which is, by the way, BLS is Bureau of Labor Statistics, that says the restaurant industry has the lowest salary almost at the bottom, maybe not the exact bottom. So how do you reconcile that? I mean, in terms of telling students that it is a great industry for compensation, however, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which has lots of data, they have many data points, is contradicting that. So can you explain that to them?
Yes, that's a good question. I'm really going to try not to be rude here. I think to me it comes down to the fact that we live in West Virginia. Okay, and I don't know if y'all are from here or if you're going to go back or wherever you're from or whatever, but I'm operating in West Virginia. That's where I live and work. It is hard to get good jobs in West Virginia. Even salaried jobs, as you said, they do get paid pretty well, I'm sure, in many, many industries other than the restaurant business. But for West Virginia, the restaurant business is a great, I think, a great industry to be in, because with the rate of pay being what it is, it's very competitive compared to other jobs in our area. Now, maybe in New York or somewhere like a big city, you might not make a whole lot of money, I guess, comparatively in the restaurant business, but if you look at the amount of schooling you need with the restaurant business compared to those high salary jobs, I mean, I think the difference speaks for itself. And we're talking, even in West Virginia, say the GM of Olive Garden, they're probably making a good $80,000 plus a year. And then their assistant managers, they're making $50,000 a year. So I feel like that's a pretty good salary to pay your bills with in this area, you know, with our cost of living being the way it is. In other places, it may not be such a great option. So that's a good point.
So it's geographically, it's very different.
That's my opinion on it.
Okay. No, that's fine, actually, because I think there may be somebody in the group that's more entrepreneurial. somebody wants some stability, somebody wants something else, how would they choose, or why should they choose the restaurant industry as a target industry when they're graduating? I don't know how many are graduating soon, but I'm sure that there are more than one. So what would they be looking for? What is it actually going to motivate them to go into the restaurant industry?
That's a good question too. I think obviously it depends on your major. So you've picked a path already, and if you're really happy with that path and it's not management, it's not business, or maybe if it is business, you can do business in lots of businesses, but you're happy with your major, then I say go be happy. If you're, you know, you want to go to law school, go to law school. It's just that restaurant business is a great opportunity to do while you're going to school, and then you might get lost and realize, like me, that you're good at it and that you actually are getting paid pretty good and end up being there anyway, which I hate to say. I ended up here in a default, but I sort of feel like that in a way because I kept trying to get out. But maybe the universe kept pointing me back towards it because it's what I'm good at, and it's kind of where my heart is. And I really enjoy being able to work with people in the way that I can. As a restaurant manager, I get to coach people and teach them, and I always tell people, whether you work for me for 2 months or 3 years, I want you to be a better person. When you leave me, I want to invest time with you. I want you to grow and learn, whatever your end goals are. So I feel great that I can be able to help people grow and learn. And so that, I guess it just depends on what you love. Like, if you love whatever major you're doing is not in the restaurant, like, don't go to the restaurant. Like, I'll just say it. But do what makes you happy. And restaurant work right now is what makes me really happy. So.
Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, if you all have questions, please raise your hand. Let's say I am a businessman, you're just like me, whatever my major is. I'm like, I want to be a man. And you're telling me, like, hey, there's decent money you make in this restaurant, and it's fast paced, and I want to do that. What would be the steps that they would take? I mean, is there like some kind of a manager trainee role that they could enter into or something like that?
Okay, that's a good question too. So I'm just going to be straight up with you. Right now, you got to start at the bottom. So if that means you got to start as a dishwasher, you got to start as a dishwasher. It is high competition. People want manager jobs. And we don't want to hire from the outside unless we absolutely have to. So that being said, you can get promoted really fast. So if you you apply and you say, okay, I want a manager position. And the manager's like, great, I need someone, but I'm not sure about you because I obviously haven't worked with you before. I need you to work here for a while, and then we can make decisions and work on it. And then at that point, you can get fast-tracked, is what they call, into management, depending on how great you are. Because I've hired several people that have manager experience. They're really bad. They're like, you can't even do dishes properly. How am I supposed to let you run a restaurant? Like, it's really important to me that my restaurant's running well. You represent me while I'm not there. And if you can't do dishes, I can't trust you to run a restaurant. So you kind of have to feel people out and then start promoting them pretty quickly. So there was one guy I did this with. He had a couple managers experience years at Hardee's. And I was like, well, we'll start you as a line server. And that's the front of the line, and they get started at minimum wage. I gave this kid 4 raises in 6 months because he was just that good. He came in and blew me away. He had to prove to me and to the rest of the crew, because it's a very tight-knit crew, that he knew what he was doing, and he was, capable enough to be a manager. So now he's considering being a first assistant, and he's done really well, and I'm really happy and proud of him because he fast-tracked so quickly. And so unfortunately, that's the bad side. You do have to kind of start at the bottom a little bit. Now, however, there are ways to get in. It's just more about timing and a little bit about connections, like all great things in life. So if you do apply for a manager position, you may get it. you know, and it just kind of depends on the situation of the restaurant at that point. When I like to run a restaurant, I don't want to be in a situation where I have to make a desperate hire like that. I want to be able to cultivate my people. And you don't want to work in a restaurant where they just hire managers and don't try to cultivate their people. If you think about that, they're not going to spend time with you. So you want to work in a place that is trying to promote from within, that is trying to coach and teach people and broaden their horizons. And so it seems a little frustrating to start at the bottom or start lower than where you want to be, but it's a good thing because it shows that the company is trying to help everyone grow and progress, and you just have to put your time in a little bit.
That's great. Actually, I know some of the students here probably are waiting for something that you and I haven't talked about at all. So I'm going to throw that in. If they don't want to go to the restaurant business working for somebody else, they have an option because the restaurant is big on franchises. They can own a franchise. Can you let them know how expensive that might be or the cost of ownership? I do know about McDonald's and I do know about KFC. You were talking about a few $1 million rather than just $10,000. Can you give them some idea that where may be a good starting point for them if they don't want to work for a restaurant but want to own one? So that's ownership versus working, I guess.
Okay. So you're going to need a lot of money if you want to open a franchise. A lot. You got to spend money to make money. Okay, so you're going to have the total cost of the buying of the building, right? So they make it, and of course you have to follow the corporate rules, and they're going to tell you exactly how you need to build it. And then you're going to have to buy all the stuff inside and all the training, and then you have to keep it repairing and blah, blah, blah. And my boss spends tons of money all the time. And I see it because I'm the one doing the uniform orders, I'm the one doing the small wares orders, and I'm the one doing the repair orders and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of money. And you have to pay the corporation every could be month, could be year, about
Franchise fee.
to run the restaurant with their name on it. All you're doing is paying for their name, literally, and getting their, benefits of being in their company. So we're looking at probably about 4 stores of Qdoba that were opened. It was about $1 million a store. And I think that's probably just the initial, getting opening, and that's not the constantly, running the store and all of that stuff. So my suggestion is if you're not really rich, get experience in the industry, like my boss did. He worked at Domino's for years, and then he met someone who was really rich that didn't have experience in the industry but had the money. So they combined together, and that's kind of where our franchise was born, is because he picked someone who he knew, the money guy, picked someone who he knew would represent the company and teach people the way that would make some money. And so they got together, and then the money guy paid for everything, and the other guy coached us all. So it worked out for them. It's a lot of money.
Good. Before Travis tells us our time is over, I want to give Jeni an opportunity to tell you what the recommendation might be if somebody does want to go to the restaurant industry. What will be the preparatory phase, and what will be some of the things that they should know about, they should think about? So
Okay. So get started now. I would recommend you could work at a place 2 or 3 days a week. It's hard if you're in sports. I've had several employees who are trying to do sports and stuff at the same time. That's really hard. But if you're able to work 1 or 2 nights a week, then you start getting in, you start meeting people, you start building connections and learning and getting those skills that you're going to need later on. And then after you do graduate, you would already have a position in place where you could start going full-time and then investing in getting into that management position and growing and getting higher and higher. So maybe you do have a job right now, but you don't like where you're at, as far as you don't think there's there's not good odds of progression there. Go find a place that you do like. I'm biased, but I suggest Qdoba or Papa Johns. we like to promote from within. We care about our people. We coach our people. We teach them, and we value them. We're in the people business. So we just happen to make food, but our business is actually our team and growing them and teaching them. So that's my 2 cents for that.
Now it's your turn. Ask any questions you would like to. Travis may help.
I could be a primer if I need to. What do you all think? Is there any, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and I'm thinking like, gee whiz, I could go out and, there's internship opportunities, right, with different kinds of companies out there, but then you have a restaurant business, for instance. There's other, we just happen to be talking about restaurants tonight, but here's an opportunity. It's flexible, like you say, and you can go in and make money. You can get experience, and potentially by the time you graduate, you might be making, if you're there a couple of years, you might be making pretty good money. So, so I'm going to kind of bring that back. So if I'm a college student, and I'm thinking, well, I can, I don't have a whole lot of time. Maybe I've got the weekends I can work, and maybe a couple evenings a week. Is it that simple? Is that all it takes? Just to come into a restaurant, work part-time, and you can really prove your worth? Does that put you in a really good position to eventually come get to where you're at?
Okay, a couple things. You have to be good at it. Maybe that's a given, but if you suck, then you're not going anywhere. You have to care about what you're doing. If you have the right attitude and you care, then you're going to be promoted better. And this is a little out of the box, but most places have a click when you work there. You're nodding, you know what I'm talking about. You need to get in with the click if you want to progress and get promoted and blah, blah, blah. So if you're not in that clique, you'll feel it. It's obvious. You'll feel the social pressures there. And once you start being in the clique, you're going to start getting the benefits of the clique and being able to be promoted. Now, there's 2 different kinds of cliques, which is going into my thesis work, but basically you want to work in a place that has a good one where the managers are involved. That doesn't mean fraternization. It means that they're communicating well with the team, and the clique of the crew is in the right direction, that they're not trying to sabotage things, that they're not trying to push people out, but it's a better, happy clique where they're trying to help people grow and learn and train, and they embrace new people, and it's like in a good way, like the energy is going in the right way. So if you get into that kind of clique, you're good at it, and you're willing to sacrifice a little bit, then I'm going to say that's probably going to be a good road to get promoted. Obviously, it's not a math equation, but I'd say that would be the best way.
Well, that's interesting. You talked a little bit about your schoolwork, so as we know from your introduction, you got a master's in sociology. How has that helped you in your job?
Oh, it's helped me so much. Actually, my job helped my sociology. So I did an experiment on my crew. As the general manager, I was studying cliques. And I've taken over, 3 restaurants that were struggling. And every restaurant had the wrong clique. So I call that a crew-run store. The crew was running the store. They were making the decisions, basically, who was going to stay, who was going to go, how they were going to prioritize the day. They cared more about hanging out with people after work and going and, whatever, later than they did about the business and growing and making money and following the rules. So every time I went in there, I had to attack the clique head on and make my own clique. And we have my research, which is called the consent deal, where as a manager you enter into sort of a deal with each individual person, and when they give you a little bit, you give them a little bit. So we'd be willing to break little tiny rules because the crew member would be willing to step up and help. And just as an example of a rule, it would be like scheduling. So usually I call the holy grail of schedule is Monday through Friday open shifts, right? Everyone wants that, nights and weekends off. Everyone in the restaurant business, most of them, want that shift. That's the holy grail schedule. I will give that schedule to people who are working really hard for me and they want it and they do a good job. That's one of my first rewards, is I give them their preferred schedule. And that's sort of breaking the rules because as a manager, I don't have to do that, but I'm bending over to help them. I'm giving them a little bit of reward, and then they in turn give me reward. And so that's what I studied. So while I was using that, I learned about it, and I was able to do it at work while still being able to write about it and get my degree. So it really worked out like super serendipitously. Is that a word? Sure is. Yeah. It is now.
Anyone else from the group?
When it comes down to hiring athletes, do you tend to shy away, or because I've heard of managers preferring to hire athletes with their coachable and stuff like that?
Yes. Well, if their schedule allows for it, because sometimes, a school and sports, you're probably busy almost every evening, right? And definitely on the weekends. But maybe in the off season, you could have work. Yeah, and I'll totally hire people during the off season. I think we had a softball player in one of the stores, and she did really well because they have a good team mentality. As far as coachable goes, sometimes I find they have a little bit of a entitlement thing. So it depends on how that is, and everybody's different. So if they don't have that sort of feeling about themselves and they are coachable, and they're willing to accept feedback, then yes, absolutely.
Jeni, to give you I don't know if you'll call this in the beginning, but her title is a training director. And she has five stores under her. And how many employees per store? On average?
15, 20 total. We have 80 employees.
Yeah. So in a roundabout way, she has 80 employees that she's responsible for training in some sort of fashion. So if you have any interest in leadership development, which I personally have a big interest in that, and that's like what she does. So, think about, like I say, this is the time to ask anything you want to know about leadership development or about the restaurant industry in particular. Please fire away while we have her here.
Yes, benefits. First of all, for me, food. Okay. So you get meal benefits. At Qdoba, you get free food if it's a shift, and then 50% off if you're not working. At Papa Johns, I think it's 30% off. And we have insurance. So if you're a team member, you can pay for insurance. But obviously, the higher up you go, the more better the insurance gets. Like the better the insurance, but also the less money you have to pay out, the more money the company's willing to pay out. So we have benefits in insurance, vision, dental, health, and we have 401k if you want to invest in that, and we have life insurance available too. So we have those basic things met. Any other benefits you were thinking about? No? Okay. Not that I know of, like you can invest in one. He said retirement, so, but it's not a good one as far as that goes, I think.
Anything else? Anybody else? No? Yes? Maybe? You can ask about the food.
If there isn't anything else, I'll steal your mic again real quick. Thank you, sir. But something that you all may or may not have noticed, who here has logged on to that handshake program that we use? And Yakira has, and anybody else? Who's heard of it? Okay, at least we've heard of it. All right. Handshakes are online job board, and most of the time, right, it's generally who's looking at it. It's like seniors who are looking to graduate and trying to find jobs, and I'm assuming we probably have a mixture in here, but people come to me all the time saying, I need a part-time job. I just need to make some money right now. Guess who almost always has jobs on Handshake? Ta-da! Yes, Jenny's company almost does. You're probably the one that posts them, I'm assuming. Yeah. So, you use that and take advantage. I mean, think about some of the things she's talked about. And like she said, there's negatives, which there are to every industry. I love my job, but we could do a 30-minute session on the negatives about the job. But I could do a little longer on the positives. I think that's probably how you feel about the restaurant industry. And so, please take advantage. I mean, come up here, and if you have any questions, ask her about it. If you're interested in working, if you're one of those people who have emailed me at some time and said, I need a part-time job, talk to her while you're here. Just ask her about what the job's like. It may or may not be the right fit for you. But any last questions from anybody? Deepa, you have any last question? Okay. Anybody have any final questions? So, with that said, yes, Jenny.
Okay, I turned it off. I just forgot that I wanted to say this.
Yeah.
I usually tell groups about this when I visit, and it's about how to get a job right away. So I'm sure a lot of you have put in applications at lots of places, and you just kind of put it in there, click send, and then hope that you get a job, right? And then you just sort of wait, and it's sort of in the space of cyberness somewhere that you put an application in, right? Well, you're probably not going to get a job like that. So I tell everybody this. You put in an application, call the store. Okay? They probably get 15 people a week or more maybe. And you're lucky if they actually call you. Call the store and tell them, hello, my name is whatever your name is, and I just put in an application. I would love to work for you. I backtrack. First, you have to ask for the hiring manager, who's usually the GM, but it could be somebody else. So you say, may I speak to the hiring manager? If you don't talk to the right person, your name's going to get written on a piece of paper and thrown in the garbage. So talk to the right person, not on purpose. It's just what'll happen. It'll be put on a counter somewhere, and it'll get lost and forgotten in the desk. So talk to the right person, the manager, and say, I put in an application. I'm very interested in working for your company. Maybe list a little bit of your experience if you have any, and then say, when can I come in for an interview? Now, what's the worst thing that they can do? Say no, right? So you're in the same spot you were before. Oh, well, that sucks. Same thing, not a big deal. But what's the best thing they could say? Yes, come in tomorrow at 2:30, you have an interview. I love people who call me when they apply because it saves me time on two things. I don't even have to go call them. Yes, come in for an interview tomorrow. And I also know a little bit more about that person. They have ambition, they have initiative, and they actually care about a job for me, with me. So I will give them definitely a higher choice before I'll give someone else. So always do that if you're really needing a job. Yeah.
Well, that's ironic that you should say that. So who was here this morning, or noon, most of you? Did that sound familiar? Yeah. We had a guy from Aflac this morning, and he said, call after you apply. Don't just leave it out there. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's consistent across industry. So we're actually coming down to our time here, so I'm going to wrap it up. Let's give them a big hand, Deepa and Jenny. Remember to leave your attendance sheet just on the seat there so I can pick those up afterwards. Take some cookies with you. Take some, Deepa's already taken my advice. There we go. The resource table back there, remember, I forgot to mention this morning, but that's all free stuff for you all. Just take whatever you want off of that table. And tomorrow, here at noon, we have a study abroad panel. So if you ever thought about studying abroad, perfect time to come in and listen about that. No session tomorrow evening. And then Thursday, we have a session about LinkedIn at noon and an entrepreneurs panel in the evening. So that's what's happening the rest of the week. Thank you all for coming.